Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're so excited to be starting out our live stream. Today, you're joining us in our workshop on Red Hat OpenShift, where we will be exploring how to deploy and control the workloads for your applications on Red Hat OpenShift. So let's just start with some introductions. Feel free to type in the chat, say hi, share an emoji, tell us where you're joining us from. We're excited to hear from you and what you are excited to learn with us today. My name is Masa Abu Shamle, and I'm a developer advocate based in Dubai. My focus areas are cloud native technologies, so I mainly like to focus on Kubernetes and OpenShift and anything that is around the Kubernetes system. Along with me, I'm excited to be presenting with my colleague Asna. Would you like to introduce yourself, Asna?
Yes, sure, Masa. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am super excited for our workshop. My name is Asna Javed. I'm a lead developer advocate from IBM in Pakistan. My expertise are cloud native and application security and anything that's related to technology. Over to you, Masa.
Thank you, Asna. So excited to be with you today here. So yeah, feel free to interact with us as people start to come in and join our live stream. And let's view a bit of our agenda for today as people are going to join us. So mainly we will start with talking about Red Hat OpenShift for developers. And we'll be introducing some of the components in Red Hat OpenShift, such as builds and what are the different build strategies that are supported in OpenShift. And then we'll be introducing how you can scale your applications and update them and roll them back. Then we will apply all of that in the hands-on with Asna. So you will learn all of these concepts and then get your hands-on with these on Red Hat OpenShift. So a little bit of housekeeping here. Make sure that, these are all of the resources that you're going to need for today. Hopefully that you managed to create your IBM Cloud accounts first before joining us. We mentioned that in the prerequisites. If you didn't, feel free to create your IBM Cloud accounts as I'm going to be presenting, as you're going to need to have access to your OpenShift clusters and IBM Cloud account to follow along with Asna during the hands-on lab. I've also provided for you the tutorial. So if you would like a documentation to refer back to, copy the commands, or even just apply the tutorial at your own pace. So we have shared all of these in a pinned comment in the chat. And if you are on a Crowdcast, you will find a button that will lead to the GitHub repository, so you can access all of these resources in one place. So I'm just keeping it here so you could all, get an idea of what you're going to need for today. Next up is, keep in mind that we're also live on multiple platforms. We're live on Crowdcast, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter. Just go ahead and look up IBM Developer in any of these platforms, and you will be able to find our live stream. I believe the links are also shared in the chat if you prefer any, if you have any preference on whichever platform you would like to join us from. So let's take a look at if we have some interaction from the chat. Okay, so let's get started. Yeah. Feel free, by the way, to interact with us throughout the live stream. If you have any questions, we will try our best to address them throughout the workshop. In the first topic, we're going to cover is what is Red Hat OpenShift and what it can do for us as developers. So Red Hat OpenShift is a container platform that is built on top of Kubernetes. So it leverages all of these Kubernetes components and resources, so you could have this platform right ahead of you. It has also some extra functionalities where you can, for example, use Tekton or Grafana and so on, all of it in one place. In addition to that, it provides you with the option to use the web console, which is this nice, friendly, user-friendly UI, which you can manage your cluster if you prefer to use the web console. You can also use the command line for OpenShift if you prefer to type things yourself. So this is a screenshot of how it would look like from an administrator perspective. You know that there are actually two perspectives. There's the administrator perspective, and then there's the developer perspective. A little bit of summary about the administrator perspective or the administrator role on OpenShift is that you have kind of like a global role, like, you know, the privilege to do anything on this cluster. So you are responsible for managing the cluster, the resources, projects, users, and so on. So many stuff. And you can do that through the web console and the CLI. Of course, the CLI actually provides you with more functionality as an administrator, but it also has this nice view. Like you can, for example, see all of these graphs of the cluster utilization, such as CPU, memory, and storage, and so on. On the other hand, but the part that we will be mainly focusing on is the developer perspective or the developer role. So the developer is mainly responsible on, you can say, like on a project level. So you are responsible for managing these applications, building them, deploying them from different resources. For example, you can deploy them from your GitHub repository, from container registry, from YAML definitions, and so on. And you can manage all of the resources along with that, such as config maps and builds and secrets, pipelines if you are working with CI/CD projects, and so on. So what does Red Hat OpenShift offer for developers? Like we just saw the web console and how it looks like. So mainly it helps you to create and deploy applications by importing existing code bases, images, and Docker files. So just as I mentioned earlier, like it can be from a Git repository, it can be from Docker Hub, Quay.io, or even, you can just, if you prefer to write YAMLs, you can do that. It also allows you to group components within an application and across applications. You can also visually interact with these applications and components within the project and monitor their deployment and build the status. So, for example, like as you can see, we have this like beautiful visualization of like this pod, which means that this dark blue circle is showing you that it's running perfectly fine, it's healthy. If it has any errors, it will show you that it will show you in dark red color. You can also see the visualizations of consumptions and resources, as shown in the previous slide. And there's much more to it, actually. And finally, integrating serverless capabilities. Serverless allows you to scale up and down applications based on the traffic that your application is receiving. So it's really important and essential to, keep up with the demands of your business. So serverless is actually a really useful use case for many businesses around, and you can integrate it directly with Red Hat OpenShift. Now that we covered Red Hat OpenShift for developers, we're going to dive a little bit more into the components of Red Hat OpenShift, and we will get an idea of what we will be working with today. So let's just start with talking about build and BuildConfig. This is an interesting diagram which shows you like what is the relation between a BuildConfig and a build. So you can say, for example, a build config is like the definition of the entire build process, and it describes a single build definition and a set of triggers. Now, this set of triggers could be like a commit from a GitHub repository or any changes to the image that you are building. So once there is a trigger, it will create a build for you. The first time you're going to build your application, it will create the first build. It will trigger it manually, and then and if you actually use a trigger or a webhook, it will be automatically updated and it will create builds for you. So builds transform the input parameters that you have into a resulting object. So from source code into a runnable image. And then now that we understood what build and what build config mean, let's understand the different build strategies. And we will be working with one of them, which is the Docker build. So the three main build strategies are Docker build, source to image build, and custom build. Now, by default, Docker build and source to image builds are supported in Red Hat OpenShift. So it's available for all users who can create and build their applications on Red Hat OpenShift. As for custom build, it's only available for cluster administrators. It is of a high privilege. So a little bit more details about Docker build. Docker builds, by definition, it builds your Docker image that is a runnable image, which you can create your container application from. But it takes a Docker file first, and then it runs a Docker build command. In OpenShift, it uses builda to build this container image from a Docker file. The next build strategy is source to image. So source to image build simply takes ready to run images. It produces ready to run images by taking the application source code and a builder image. The builder image could be a Docker file, for example, and it can be anything. Yeah. So your builder image, it can be taken from your source code repository, your GitHub repository, or it can be taken from the registry. When you want to go with the build with the source to image strategy, you would be using the the new app command and then providing the get URL of it. So you would have there are also other parameters such as the name of it, if there is a specific directory that where your application resides, and so on. Now OpenShift actually expects specific files in order to be able to run it to build your application, such as Docker file if you want to go with a Docker file build, and maybe for Node.js, you would go with app.json and package.json, and so on. You can find more details about, what are the files that you're going to need for different programming languages. So you could add them for the right, add the right namings for your repository. So OpenShift auto-detects these programming languages, and then it selects the compatible builder image. So finally, this output image here you have, it incorporates the builder image and the build source code that you have. So you can eventually run the Docker run command. So one of the features and advantages of source to image is that it supports incremental build. So you can reuse any previously downloaded dependencies, any previously built artifacts. You can customize it, by the way. So there are different ways of how you can customize your source to image build. So you can build it from scratch if you prefer a specific a more customized way of using source to image. You can also use a specific image tag for your source to image build. Yeah. So to conclude, when it comes to source to image, there are so many advantages such as image flexibility, speed, and patchability, and we can see that in the next slide, where we'll be explaining the process of it. In addition to operational efficiency and security, user efficiency, and finally ecosystem. So this is a really nice you can say diagram or journey of how source to image build process works. So it starts with the new app command. So as I mentioned earlier, you're using new app to create your applications. You have to provide a URL. OpenShift will check if this URL a container registry or not. So if it's a container registry such as Docker Hub or Quay.io, it will deploy the container image. Otherwise, it will go and check for you whether it was a Git repository or not. If it is not a Git repository, it will give you an error. So it expects either an image registry or a Git repository. Next thing is if it points to a Git repository, it will check whether it contains a Docker file. So many developers add Docker file to customize their applications, how they want it to run. And there are two strategies in source to image build, which are Docker strategy and the source strategy. So the Docker strategy is if you have Docker file in your GitHub repository, otherwise it will just go with the strategy source. Then it will go and check the image stream if the builder language is supported. If it is not, it will build a container. Otherwise, it will search the image stream with the same name, so it won't have to create it all over again. Now that we covered source to image, let's move up to custom build.
Yep. And I just want to take a moment and welcome whoever just joined us. We are actually talking about how you can deploy your applications on Red Hat OpenShift and how you can roll back those updates. And right now we're talking about custom builds. So over to you, Masa.
Thank you, Asna. So feel free to ask any questions. I can get really into explaining whatever explaining. So yeah. Anyways, moving on. Let's go with custom build. So we covered Docker build, source to image build, and custom build. The final build, which is like it's more, you can say, flexible than the past two, because you can specify the entire build process, and it's you can design it however you want. And a custom builder image is just like a plain container image that is embedded with the builder process logic. It can be like for building RPMs or base images. But keep in mind that custom build is not available for all users. It's only available for cluster administrators. So you have to have that permission. Now, if you are going to try custom build at some point, the clusters that we are providing, you will have a cluster administrator role. So you can work with it as an administrator. Now that we covered the three types of builds, let's move on to the next topic, which is scaling applications. So scaling applications is like you would have multiple replicas of your pod, so it can help you ensure that your deployment has the available resources to handle any increasing load on your application. So if you have, a number of people who are using your application at the same time, it will be necessary to have your application available to everyone. And that's where scaling application can help. So in case if there is you can set the number of replicas that your pod can have or can scale up to. And there are different ways where you can do that by, for example, using the OC command, which you will be using in today's hands-on with Asna. In the OC command, you would give the replicas parameter and add the number of replicas of your pod, for example, and then provide the deployment or the build config of your pod. And then there is the autoscale command. The autoscale is like it automatically scales your application, so you don't have to set it to a specific number of replicas. You would have to add the deployment config or the deployment, the resource that you want to scale, and then you specify three parameters: the minimum and the maximum number of replicas of your application. And then there is the CPU percent. This means you can say it's like a threshold. So whenever it reaches this percentage, it will scale up to 10, for example. And once it reaches below that, then it will scale down. Another concept of scaling applications is related around serverless. Serverless will help you to save resources, and it automatically scales them up and down, and you would have to use operators to manage it on Red Hat OpenShift. But we're not really covering that for today, but I would be happy to share with you some resources if you're interested to learn more about that. So we learned about the scaling application. Next up is update and rollback. Now, the best way I figured to, talk about update and rollback is by giving a story. Us as developers, we're working on our application. We're setting in, this is an example, maybe we're setting an image, specifying this application, and we want to update it to a new version, okay? So this is what happens. We have two versions of the application. So we're setting, you created your application, and then you want to update it by updating the image name, for example, or by a new push from the GitHub repository. So this will lead you to a new version of your application, and it will be patched. But sometimes we might face some bugs, some errors, which leads to a bad user experience, you can say. It can be harmful to the business. And so in this case, we could either try to fix it and update it, or we could also roll it back. So we can just undo the deployment and go back to the previous version, which we will be exploring. This can be done using the OC rollout undo deployment command. You will get to see how it works. And then you will have happy users, happy business, happy customers. Yeah. So so far, we covered the different build strategies, which are the Docker, S2I, and custom. We learned what does build and build config mean, and what does scaling applications mean, and update and rollback. So just a reminder, we will be moving on now to the hands-on, where Asna will lead you with her on how you can perform these, ways of like managing your application lifecycle on Red Hat OpenShift. So make sure that you have access to these links. You can also have access to, by the way, the OpenShift clusters are available for only 24 hours after the stream. So feel free to also attempt at your own pace if you don't feel like you can follow along, and that's totally fine. The clusters are actually by a first come, first serve basis. So try to get your clusters now so you can, be able, so you will be able to follow along. So yeah, Asna, over to you.
Thank you, Masa. That was a very interesting presentation and very informative as well. So for those of you who just joined us, we are now going to conduct a hands-on. Today, we are talking about how you can deploy your application on Red Hat OpenShift and how you can update and roll back those updates. So to begin with our hands-on, you would need two things. Firstly, an IBM Cloud account. The links are available in the chat. And then the second thing you would need is a Red Hat OpenShift cluster. Again, the links are available in the chat, so feel free to use them. So when you have the IBM Cloud account, we would need an IBM Cloud shell. So from the dashboard, which you can see right now on the screen, you just need to go on here and just click on IBM Cloud shell. This will take you to a new Windows. I already have that opened here for me. So this would be my IBM Cloud shell. All right. And then we would have a Red Hat OpenShift cluster. So this is a Red Hat OpenShift cluster, and it's that web console. Now we have the IBM Cloud Shell, and we have our Red Hat OpenShift cluster. What we are going to do is we are going to sign into our cluster, so we can start developing our application. So for that, we just need to click on your name here, click on copy login IDs, and this will take you to a new Windows where it will generate a token for you to log into your cluster using IBM Cloud Shell. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask us. Let us know in the chat what questions you have. We are here to help you out and answer them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this, and I am going to paste it in my... All right, let's do this. So now I am logged in and I am ready to create my project, my application. So we also have this code pattern that we are going to follow today. Again, the links are all available in the chat. And again, if you're new, if you just joined, you can find the links in the chat and you can follow us along. So let's start with the first step. And the first step is to create an application from an existing Docker image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this code here, and I'm going to paste it here in my PowerShell. Oops, sorry. Let me copy it again. Sometimes these things happen. again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask us. Masa and I are here to help you out. All right, it doesn't want to get copied.
Asna, can you zoom in a little bit with the command line?
Sure, let me zoom in a bit.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Masa, is this good?
Yeah.
All right. So, okay. So now I have pasted this and my project is created. So we are ready. So my project is created here. That's my new application and we used it from an existing Docker image. Let's go to step 2 where we are going to create a new deployment resource, right, from the Docker image in the project that we have. All right. So again, I'm just going to copy and paste this here. And my deployment resource is created as well. And what now we can do is we can go and check it out that our pods are working and they are, corresponding properly. So let's just check them. All right, see, here you can see that this is my pod and it is running and it was created 17 seconds ago. So it's up and running. So amazing. Let's go with our next step, that is to expose the deployment on port 3000. All right. So now we have an application that is up and running and we are going to expose it on our local host port. All right. So I have exposed my port, all right, on port 3000. Now what I'm going to create is a route. From you have to go to your Red Hat OpenShift web console dashboard. All right, scroll down from here. Masa, do let me know if I have to zoom in a little bit or if this is good to go. So I'm just going to click on routes. Here you can see that I have a project for guest book project. So I'm going to click on create route. All right. So what I am going to do, and here you guys can also see it here, that I just need to follow these commands. I'm going to name my notebook as my guest book. All right. My route. So I am just going to name that. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a service that is my guest book. And then I am going to target it to port 3000 and I'm going to click on create. Also, we can secure our route if you want to, but right now for this workshop, we're not going to do that. So I'm just going to click on create. All right. So my route is all working. Okay. Amazing. So what next? So now that we have this, all right, what we have to do is once you create your route, you can now be redirected to your router's overview where you can extend the external route. So let's check out where do we have our external routes. All right. I might have to, all right, so here it is. So now you can see that this is the location. This is the link for my route. And I am going to click on this. And my application is working just fine. So we have an application ready. For those who just joined, we are doing a hands-on workshop right now. We are talking about how you can deploy your application on Red Hat OpenShift, how you can update and roll back updates. So right now what we did is we created an application from an existing source image. We created the routes and then we exposed those routes and now our application is working fine. It's on localhost. All right. So let's go with our next step. So let's scale our application using the replica method that Masa already explained. So if you just joined, you guys can also watch the replay and all the links for these relevant the workshop is in the chat, so you can go and check that out there. So let's do what we're going to do is we're going to scale our application. So the step 1 is to work for this particular workshop. We are going to replicate them with 5 instances. You guys can go up and below. It all depends upon your own choice. Let me just copy this. All right. All right, so it says that my application is scaled. Let's check it out if it is scaled or not. Let's check our status. And this is really fun. I really enjoy working with this. So, yep, let me just check this out. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask us in the chat. It says successfully rolled out. That's good. Good to go. Now let's verify our pods. So we said that we had 5 pods running. Let's check them out if we have 5 pods or not. All right. So here you guys can see that we now have 5 pods. Our application is scaled. All of them are up and running, and everything is good. All right. So let's do one thing, okay? Now let's go and update the application, all right? And we already had an application that we created, and this is the application that we already saw. That's Gets Book version 1. We are now going to update our application to version 2. All right, so this is the step that we are going to do. We are going to copy this. All right, so here it says that my image is updated. So this is what we wanted, and I am excited about that. Let's check out the rollouts. All right, the status of our rollouts, if it's working fine, if it rolled out or not. Let's check that out. So it says that the rollout was successful, so that's good. We got that, and let's again check our newly launched pods, because we just went from version 1 to version 2. We have now a new list of pods as part of moving. So let's check them out as well. All right, so now we have a different set of pods available, and they are working fine. Now what we can do is let's copy the name of one of the new pods that we created. Like, for example, let's copy the name of this. All right. I am going to copy this. I will paste it here. And what else? So we need to have this here. OC describe pod. Why are we doing this? We just need to understand whether this pod is of our first rollout or the second rollout. All right. So for that reason, what we are going to do is we are going to copy and paste this to check it out. All right. Let's see. So here you guys can see that this is working fine. All right. And let me just show you quickly. So this is like everything is working fine, and we are good to go. All right. Let's start with our next step. What we are going to do now is we are now going to refresh our application that we exposed, and we are going to refresh the route. And here you can see that now it's version 2. So first we had our applications version 1, and now we have our version 2. So all good with the rollout. So we were able to scale our application. So yeah, I think I had some internet connectivity issues, so it's connecting me again. So for those of you who are just joining us, we are conducting a hands-on workshop on how to deploy your application on Red Hat OpenShift, how to update and scale it, and roll out the updates. So if you guys are new, you can find all the relevant links in the chat. They're available. You can follow us with the tutorial link along. You would need an IBM Cloud account for the hands-on workshop and a cluster of Red Hat OpenShift. The URL and the key for cluster is also available that you can utilize. This might take a while. So meanwhile, let's take a look at this. So now we have our application, we have scaled it, we have updated, and now it's time to roll back. And let's do that. All right, let me just refresh this.
We got a question, Asna, and it says, how can we see the rollout history? Does it record the changes, or do we need to use the -record command? I have the
Masa, would you
answer
like to
for.
answer that?
Yeah, sure. So, Asna, you could try maybe the OC rollout history command and then provide the name of the deployment.
Sure.
So,
Uh,
it should give you like the history of like the past rollouts, and you could specify more details and add more parameters to view the history of your rollout.
Sure. Let me just log in again first. So sometimes this happens for you can logged out because of internet connectivity issues. So things like that happen, and it's perfectly all right and normal. So hang in there with me, guys.
So I can share in the comments as well link to the documentation so they can view
All
more
right.
details.
Sure, Masa. What would you want me to do right now?
Yeah, so you can try a C rollout history.
All right. Oh,
And then we created a deployment history. No, it should add deployment / forward the name of the deployment.
all right. All right. Just a second. Let me just open that up. All right. So, Masa, can you please tell me the command again?
Or
So,
C.
Masa is basically the expert. She knows most of the commands. I don't, learn them by heart. So, always been bad at that. So, OC rollout history. Yes, Masa?
And then deployment.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess your deployment is called my guest book. So yeah, just add that.
All right. Okay.
Don't add the ID of the pod because we're looking for deployment.
Yep.
This should work.
All right. Yep. There it goes. So
So you
there
can
has
also
been one revision and yeah, Masa, go ahead.
You can also specify like add the parameter -- revision if you want to view it, like specific details of it.
All right. So, guys, let's move on to our next step. So, what we did, we updated our application, we created our application, we updated our application. Now it's time to roll back the application because maybe there's some issue going on with the application. Sometimes there's an error, a glitch, or could be anything, right? So, we don't want our users to feel like, okay, nothing is going right, or, the application just crashed and they feel left out. So what we're going to do is we are going to roll back. All right. So let's go and undo our latest rollout using the following command. All right. So I think we are good. So we are successfully rolled out, which means that we are now successfully on the previous version of our application. All right, let's check out our pods now because we had the previous pods and now our pods should be different. And yep, everything is ready and they're running and we are good to go. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip this step. All right, but what I'm going to do is I am going to check out that our pods are undoing the rollout successfully or not. All right, so this is it. And yep, I just now need to go and refresh my this application and see if it, rolled back or not. Normally, sometimes you have to do a hard reset.
Yeah, and this one you will have to do a hard refresh to make it work. I think because of cookies or something.
Yeah, I think so that too. All right, let me try and do the hard reset here. All right, let me take a look at it again. Everything rolled out, everything is good to go. But yep, I think, yeah, because of the cookies, it's not doing that. Let me open this again. All right, I need to maybe refresh this too. Okay, so maybe let me run the command again and check it out.
You could also try incognito, maybe. Would that work? Just wondering. And you can also check the description of this deployment. So, for example, check which version it's taking. So we can see, yeah, since you rolled it out, it
Yeah,
cannot
so
roll
yeah,
out.
no more history. Yep, yep, yep. I think we're good. All right, I think that's pretty much all. So we did rolled out. There was no rollout deployment. All good to go. Again, you need to hard reset this in case that it is not refreshing. Sometimes that happens, and it's perfectly all right because of the cookies, and they get saved. And yeah, that's pretty much all. I guess this was quick, it was easy, there was nothing much to do here. But in case you guys want to try it with your own application, or you don't want to use an existing image, Docker image, go ahead and try that and let us know what you feel, how you feel that way, whether it worked out or not. So yep, that's all from my side. And any questions, guys, do let me know. And Masa, and yeah, do try it out with your own image. For those who are just joining us, we have all the links available in the chat. Today we talked about how you can deploy your application, deploy, scale, and roll out your application on Red Hat OpenShift. I'm Asna Javed, and we had Masa with us today. So yeah, that's it from my side. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask us.
Yeah. Can I have my screen in the stream? Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay. So, few things before we wrap up. Try to actually, if you have any questions, to ask us. If right now, if you don't, you can feel free to ask us at any time. Just keep in mind these links. If you want to perform the same steps that Asna did in the hands-on lab, which was pretty much straightforward, hopefully, you can find all of the links you're going to need to do the same thing Asna did. The next thing is the survey. So the survey will help us to, let us know how we're doing and how we can improve our upcoming workshops. And what would you like, from us to show you next? Like what kind of cool technology you would like to see, and or maybe kind of cool projects that you want us to build or something like that. Whatever you like, we're happy to actually read your feedback and take it into consideration. So we have all of these links, even the survey, shared with you in the chat. And we also have our own community on Facebook. So you will see, Asna and I are actually from EMEA. We work in EMEA region. So we have our own developer group. You can join us. Everyone is welcome. Doesn't matter where you live. It's fine. We like to, collaborate. If you want to bring up any discussion, we're always there on Facebook. So it's facebook.com/forward groups and then /forward IBM developer MEA, which is Middle
Yeah,
East
so
and
it's
Africa.
Middle East and Africa. Yeah. So
Yeah.
this was really fun. We had fun, doing this workshop with you all. Do try it out by yourself. You have the clusters available for 24 hours. Uh, don't feel shy. You can reach out to us via our email or on our LinkedIn accounts, or you can also reach out to us on Twitter. And let us know if you face any difficulties or if you enjoyed the lab hands-on workshop, and we would see you next time.
Yeah. So you have our okay.